que necesito en la vida ya están aquí. I am free as a bird now, with my feathered wings. I am free as a bird now, with my feathered wings.
That you are joining us today. You know, I see this podcast as an opportunity for us to feel like we're on the Camino, and we've kind of just stopped at a cafe and we have run into some other pilgrims, and we're just going to talk about our stories. And I think today we're going to be in for a real treat. I am with Robyn-Lee Nichols, and she is a South African pilgrim, and she has some big goals in mind, 25 kilos. So we're going to talk about that. She had an amazing transformation during her Camino, so we're going to talk about that and probably a whole lot more as pilgrims do. So welcome, Robyn. Thank you so much for coming on to the Camino Cafe.
Thanks very much for having me, Leigh. It's such a wonderful space to talk about what we love. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I really see like this is the silver lining of this kind of lockdown time is, you know, we'd probably never met, and having this opportunity to kind of sit down and talk to you via Zoom is just really a great treat. And I'm so grateful that we got connected. I've been really enjoying your Facebook posts, and
Thank you.
You say a lot of things that really inspire me. And I think that I'm hoping that we will have a lot of folks that listen today that will be inspired to maybe go on their first Camino, or maybe their second, or I don't know, maybe 25. So let's kind of fill everybody in. So let's go back before your Camino. So we're back before 2019. Mm-hmm. And it looked like you were living a good life. You had a great career, and then something happened. So kind of take us back a little bit and talk to us about that moment where you were like, I'm going to go on a pilgrimage in Spain.
Yeah. So I must just tell you about the first time that I even heard about the Camino.
Okay. Yeah.
I was sitting having a pedicure, and as introverts do, we pick up magazines and we talk so that we don't interact too much. And I came across this amazing article about this young woman who had walked the Camino, and her mom had joined her from Syria. And I thought, I've never heard about this Camino de Santiago. Why haven't I heard about it? You know, I am a bit of an adventurer, and I love travel. And in my corporate career, I was able to travel quite a bit. But this thing sounded really quite special, you know. And as we do, you know, life gets in our way, and I had it on my bucket list. And I then got to a point where I started to refer back to the bucket list. You know, I was moving around quite a bit in my corporate life. You know, you always question, you know, why you do tend to move along. You know, am I really happy? And, you know, maybe I need to just step out of my comfort zone. Maybe I need to do this, and maybe I need to do that. And I decided it was time for me to start attending to this massive bucket list that I had. And it was actually just at a time, it was a perfect time. Well, it doesn't sound like a perfect time because both my parents had just passed on. But as you know, as people know, when you start facing trauma and grief and changes in your life, big things start to happen. And the first thing that cropped up for me was that, well, I'm going to go on pilgrimage. You know, why? You know, this just seems like the perfect thing to do. And I resigned from my job. I had planned to go on pilgrimage. I didn't do much research other than this article. I had checked a couple of the stages, and off I went on pilgrimage.
Okay, so was this pedicure in 2019?
So no, it was probably a good 2 years before I actually, you know, decided, no, it's pilgrimage time, and I'm going to go off. And during that time, I think I actually changed my jobs about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Between reading that article. So obviously something had stirred up inside of me that was drawing me off to this amazing thing, called the Camino, that in actual fact I knew very, very little. I knew very little about it.
So you read this article, you really don't go watch any movies, read any books, but that seed is just sitting there, just kind of germinating during this 2 years. Okay. And so you were an adventurer before. Were you used to hiking and doing long-term walks, or what were your adventures like? Were we going to beach vacations? Were we going to exotic destinations? What was your adventure like prior to your Camino?
So the only walking I'd ever done is probably just walking around cities that I was traveling to on business. Not a long distance hiker. Probably, in fact, I'm probably better designed to swimming. Swimming has always been something that I have done. I've been swimming since I was a young child. So, even the thought of going on this long walk was probably not, physically aligned to me. So it was definitely something that was inside, that was drawing me towards the whole people of the pilgrimage. And now when I think about it, it's such an interesting question. When I think about it now, I don't think I ever considered that I was actually going to walk through Spain.
Yeah.
I
was going on a pilgrimage.
Yeah, I was just going to go on pilgrimage, and I didn't even know what that. I didn't know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
It was just heartfelt, and it was something that I was called to do. It's. I don't think we would ever have the words to explain it to anybody, and anybody who hasn't gone on pilgrimage. If you've got this feeling that's running around inside of you going, I need to go, you absolutely have to answer that, and go. Don't worry about the logistics and all of that, just go, find people, because you will find people, and, go off and do this amazing thing, because it's completely life-changing.
Yeah, totally agree. So did you, before you set off then, did you do the typical, what kind of shoes, what am I going to put in my backpack? Or were you, how did you decide your starting point and what you took with you? Did you do any research for that?
So, I picked up John Briley's book. Mm-hmm. I was walking the Camino Concierge, and to be completely honest with you, it was only when I got back that I realized that the Camino Concierge and the Camino de Santiago are 2 very different things. Because that's when I realized the Camino de Santiago has actually all of these incredible, amazing routes.
Right.
I had planned I was going to go off on the Camino Concierge. I'd read all of the recommendations about what goes into your backpack. And as normal pilgrims do leading up to it, you pack your backpack and you unpack your backpack, and then you unpack it again. And then you think, I'm going to really, really need this extra pair of pants that's going to go in. And I'd read up about where I was going to start, and I planned to start in Pamplona. And I'll walk. The reason why I did that was I've had 2 massive hip surgeries, and on top of that, I had 2 hip replacements. So, I must admit, there was always this thing in my mind about, I've never really walked, and, how my hips gonna, deal with this whole. Well, it was, I guess, a complete shock for them when I started off on the walk.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's so smart though, to, and I hope that everybody that's watching and listening, I think there's sometimes a feeling out in the community that your Camino's got to be a certain way. And I feel very strongly that your Camino should fit where you are in life, and it should be the way that you need it to be. And I think honoring your body and saying, this is where I need to start. This is what I think is best for me. And I love hearing that, because hopefully others will hear that and realize that they can do it the way that they need. Looking back, starting in Pamplona, I would imagine was kind of fun, because it's like, it's a great city. Did you, what did you feel that first night? So the seed has been planted for a couple of years. Now you've made it to Spain. You've got this backpack, and I'm imagining, did you walk with poles?
I did, yes.
So you got all your stuff. What was that feeling like the night before you set off? I
was petrified. I was absolutely petrified. I don't think I had done lots of adventures before, but this one was completely out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I slept, I might have slept on and off, but when I woke up in the morning, I had this pit in my stomach that I actually can't explain. It was, I woke up and I thought, Robyn, what have you done? You're in Spain, there's perfectly good cars that you could hire and travel around Spain, and
you could actually be to Santiago in just a couple of hours.
You're now going to go off into the wilderness. You don't even know the country. You don't speak the language. How's this? I was absolutely petrified. And the day before, I'd sent a message on one of the Facebook groups. I was sitting in a coffee shop just in the old town of Pamplona. And I sent out a message and I said, look, I'm looking at pilgrims and they're walking around. I mean, you can see a pilgrim from a mile off. And, I said, they all seem to know where they're going and in what direction they're walking. I said, actually, I haven't seen any signs. And there was a lovely person that came on and said, I know how you're feeling. I don't want you to worry about anything. Tomorrow when you leave the hotel, because I know the hotel that you're staying at, this is what you've got to do. And she told me, you've got to turn right, you've got to go down the road, you've got to get to this intersection. There'll be a hotel across the road, go left, and don't stop walking. Don't stop walking. You'll be out the city, and then you will see Camino de Santiago signs all over the place. And then she said, don't stop following the yellow arrows. And that morning, that is all I thought about, was what that lovely person said to me. Because if I hadn't have had that message, I really don't think I would have gone. I was so scared. And as she said it, it's exactly what I did. And off I walked out into the beautiful country. And that was how my Camino started. And it really does. It just, the journey just opens up for you as you go along. And it wasn't long, I was probably about 2 hours into my walk. And I was feeling settled. I was feeling peaceful. The hips were working perfectly. My walking poles were working perfectly. And yeah, it was just, as it's just something that you just walk and it just sorts itself out.
Yeah. So I love this story because this shows so much of, well, first off, you have your first Camino angel that appears through Facebook.
Yeah.
And says, hey, you're going to be all right. Just do this, right? And so you have this immediate community support, which is what I have felt so strongly within this Camino community, is that there's just this, after you've walked, I feel like there is just this incredible need to give back and help others that are getting ready to take on this pilgrimage. And you found that day one. That's amazing. Did you have other instances where you felt like angels, Camino providing, where you're just like, wow, I didn't expect to be so supported?
It was really at the end of the day when I look back on what I'd seen and the people that had just popped up on the route for me, and it was actually a struggle for me. It was a difficult first day. It was a difficult first 3 days in actual fact. And people just came along the route exactly when you needed them.
Yeah.
And when you get home and you start reflecting on what has happened and the people that have crossed your path, it's, as you say, Leigh, it's incredibly powerful and humbling to be part of this group of people that go on pilgrimage and walk the Camino de Santiago, because it's a completely different breed of people.
Yeah.
And when you, as you say, when you come back, you kind of just want to scream it from the rooftops, and everybody should have this experience, this wonderful experience, to go off and do this amazing thing.
Yeah, right. We can't stop talking about it, and it's so genuine, and you can just feel the energy from everyone. Yesterday, I think, or recently, you posted a Joseph Campbell quote about following your bliss. And I wonder, now that you look back, you were following your bliss in that moment. What did you think you were seeking? When you made this decision and you get to Pamplona and you're walking, and was there something that you thought, were you trying to sort yourself out, figure out your next career move? What did you think you wanted when you first started?
So I had an epiphany moment, and I know it sounds a little bit cliche, and because what actually happened was that I only got to Los Arcos, and then I picked up an injury and I had to go back to Pamplona.
Oh,
and
okay.
And I spent 3 days in a hotel in Pamplona thinking that I would be able to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't get any better. My leg and my hip just didn't get any better. And then I came home and then went back again.
Oh, I love this.
to finish what I'd started. And when I got home the first time, I was exceptional. I was very, very sad. And I was very, I kind of beat myself up because up until that point in my life, I'd never finished a lot of things. And I realize now that I didn't finish it because, my core values weren't being met in my corporate career. Quite frankly, if you'd asked me about core values then, I wouldn't even have known anything about it. And I knew that I had to go back and finish what I'd started. So I went back and started in Osabrero and then walked the last bit of that. And there was this moment on that second time I went back, which was probably a month after I'd started the first time. I remember, and there's a photograph of it on my Facebook page, and I've got my feet up at an albergue.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that, Robyn, this is what you have to do with your life. Mm. This is what you have to do with your life. You can't go back to a corporate job. And I remember thinking as I continued to walk, I was like, well, what do I need to do to experience this feeling over and over again? And I mean, I was working through a great deal of trauma. I was working through a great deal of grief. I missed my mother exceptionally. I miss her now still. And there was just this thing that, I knew that I needed to just take my destiny in my hands. And I was just, how do I need to, I want to walk pilgrimage, and I want to be on pilgrimage for the rest of my life. And, when I was thinking about it then, I was like, well, this is just ridiculous. It's, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
But I knew that I could. And when I was sitting on that alberg, on that patio at the alberg, I just knew that there was something else that I needed to be doing other than doing a regular 9 to 5. I needed to be employing myself, doing what I needed to do, and what's happened from that point is it's literally turned my entire life around, and I would never have had that opportunity if I hadn't been injured and I hadn't gone back, because it gave me time to think about what I needed. And then, I had to go back to Spain to finish what I'd started. And then, it was, well, I need to do more and more and more of this.
Oh, I love this story. There's so many lessons in this. I think that the fact that, you get this injury back and gives you this additional space, because now you got a taste of it, but for some reason the universe calls you back and says, no, we need maybe a little more time before you're ready. And then you go back and bam,
there's this thing. And you're absolutely right. I think, when I got back and decided that when I got back after I'd actually finished, and really then started to investigate Camino and figuring out that now I have these 25 Caminos that I now need to do, and trying to figure out, okay, what do I do to get me to that point where I can be on pilgrimage for 6 months of the year. I was often regretful that I hadn't been introduced to the Camino earlier. But as you say, things just happen to you at the right time. And sometimes you do need space to think about where things are going and the possibilities for your life and what can actually happen. And, we don't necessarily have to not follow our big, audacious goals or wild dreams that we think are just high in the sky, And it is about just that specific time and the space that you give yourself to realize that.
Yeah. I wonder, I wanted to say first off, I'm sorry about your losses. And I think many of us start on a Camino because of grief. And, at some point in our lives, that's something, we ultimately face, but doesn't make it any easier. I wonder if you could speak to, if somebody is getting ready to go, did you observe any rituals, or did you find the Camino helpful for processing some grief? Not for completely getting over it, because I don't think we ever do.
Yeah.
But how did you find it helped you, and were there practices that you use that maybe somebody else could benefit from?
What the pilgrimage does, Leigh, and it's, and I'm sure you will agree as well, is that what it does is it simplifies everything about life. It takes away all of your worries about your normal day. And all you really need to do on pilgrimage is you need to eat, sleep, and walk. Yeah. And when you're doing that, you have so much space to process and to think about trauma and to think about grief. And, for me, I was spurred on by that, because I knew, and it became very apparent to me that we live every day. And if we are not living those days completely aligned with our core values, completely aligned with our beliefs, then I don't believe that we are living to our higher purpose. And the pilgrimage gives people space to have that realization, because you really have nothing else to worry about, nothing else to concern yourself about. And when you hear the Camino will provide, it absolutely does provide. You know, I never went without a bed. I never went without a meal. There were wonderful people who supported me when I needed support. And being an introvert, I don't know how people picked up on it, but they gave me my space when I needed to have my space. It was a prime situation for me to manage what I was going through in my transition. And it was, you know, I was always contemplating things every day. And there were times where I would be very sad. And then there were days when I'd be very, very happy. But my whole foundation, and it's what I talk about in my mindset coaching as well, is, you know, if we foundation everything in gratitude and we can be grateful about every single thing, you know, this is what spurs me on to everything. You know, even on bad days, we can find things to be grateful for, you know.
Oh my goodness. I want to stop you right there, because you had a post recently about gratitude for your hips.
Yeah.
And that post hit me, you know, because I think sometimes it's really hard to find gratitude in things that have been really hard, things you didn't expect, pain. And I wonder if you could kind of speak to that a little bit right now, is how did you find the gratitude for what you've gone through with your hips? And maybe kind of tell everyone a little bit about what you wrote there, because it was really, really great.
Yeah, you know, it's just very easy for us to, you know, I got handed with a dodgy pair of hips, and I think I mentioned that in my post. And you know, I can either use that as a means to feel bad, or to feel that I was dealt with a short straw, or I can use it to empower me. And the reality of this is that everything that I have done, or everything that has happened to me throughout my life, brought me to that place where I had that pedicure on that day, where I read that article about the Camino. You know, I just think that our journey and what happens to us is purposeful. And whether there's pain on that journey, you know, I'm certainly not downplaying pain, because it's not, I mean, it's not the best state to be in, but often pain can lead to a higher purpose.
Yeah. And,
you know, if I look at myself now, I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't had my two big hip operations. And I went and had a hip replacement because, you know, I knew that there was, you know, I was walking when I was traveling, whether it was around cities and things like that. And I love to do that. And I knew that I had to have a hip replacement to maintain that part of my life that I loved. At the time, I didn't know I was going to be off walking pilgrimage. But, you know, often pain is your purpose, and you have to honor that pain. And then you have to go, you know, how can I use this to my advantage, and how can I use it to other people's advantage?
Mm-hmm.
There's people who have problem hips and problem backs and problem feet. aren't denied a pilgrimage. It's just going to be a very, very different pilgrimage. You know, and you know, I think that's the power in it, because we can do anything. You know, it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, you know, what your hips look like. It, you know, it might just look a bit different to other people's journey. And yeah, sometimes I like that thing, pain is your purpose. And it just, you know, it can just spur you on to much bigger things in your life.
It's really great advice, that your pilgrimage just might look a little bit different. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay. So you call yourself the Perpetual Pilgrim, which really intrigues me. So I want to talk about how that came about. And, you know, you go from never going on a pilgrimage to having a difficult start. You go back, you finish that one, and then you decide, I'm not going to do 25 of these. That's a huge goal. So let's talk about that. Where did the name come from?
So I have just turned 49 years of age.
Okay.
And as I was writing out the routes that I wanted to do, it turned out that I would potentially be 98 if I walked a pilgrimage every single year from 2019. And then, of course, as you know, 2020, well, you know, I certainly haven't had a pilgrimage, and I know others haven't. 2021, I haven't had a pilgrimage, and I know a lot of others haven't. So it's kind of put me 2 years behind on being on pilgrimage for 6 months of the year. And that was how I was going to reach this massive, audacious goal of walking these 25 Caminos. And I was sitting there one day thinking, I'm going to be on pilgrimage for the rest of my life. Hence the Perpetual Pilgrim. And that was, you know, that was where the Perpetual Pilgrim came from. But it's been quite lovely, because it's also aligned very much to my online brand, because, as you know, starting an online business, you know, getting into the online space, that's a journey all of its own, with its own set of challenges, with its own, you know, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride there, and that in itself is a perpetual journey too. You know, we learning, and we implementing, and then we've got to learn again, and then you've got to implement new things. So the Perpetual Pilgrim just came out of the fact that, yeah, I'm going to be on pilgrimage, a physical pilgrimage and a metaphorical pilgrimage for the rest of my life now, which is wonderful.
Wow. I'm just imagining that moment when you're writing that out and realizing I'm going to be 98. Like, wow, I'm going to go back and look at that myself. Like, that had to be like an aha moment, a moment of, wow, this is,
you know, it's
now or never. I got to get it started.
Exactly. You know, it's such an eye opener.
Yeah.
When you sit down and look at your timeline, your actual physical timeline, and, you know, you go, okay, I was born and I was 0, and then I was 1, and then, you know, we generally live until we're 100, you know. And I mean, and I don't mean to put a damper on anything here, but it's a reality check for me, because I looked at it in the middle of that timeline. You know, next year is my 50th year, and I'm in the middle of that timeline.
Right.
And I looked at that and I thought, you know what, it's Robyn, it's complete, it's now or never. You have to, you know, pull up your socks and, you know, and go off and, you know, and tackle these massive goals and this bucket list of yours, because otherwise your time has run out, you know. And so that, for me, it was a huge reality check. And, you know, I was quite, you know, quite daunted at the same time. to be honest, when you look at that.
Yeah. So I'm not familiar with what your visa requirements and things are like from South Africa. So is it like for us, you can go 3 months and then have to go back home for 3 months? And so when you talk about your 6 months, or are you going to do 6 months in a row and then go back home?
Yeah, so South Africans have to apply for the Schengen visa.
Okay.
And what the Schengen visa, it gives you access to all of the states in the European zone. So what's actually very nice is that when we applied to the Spanish embassy here, this last visa that I had a 6-month visa.
Oh, okay.
I kind of figured that if I apply for one every year, I will just be in Spain for 6 months, walking all over, doing bits and stages, and hopefully helping out in some of the albergs as well. And that's as a South African, that's part of the timeline. I will stand corrected. It's a special thing when we apply to the Spanish embassy here as pilgrims, because under normal Schengen requirements, we have to have return plane tickets and we have to have accommodation booked. What we do is we get a letter from our local association here. They say, this is a pilgrim, she's going on pilgrimage, she hasn't booked accommodation because this is what the pilgrimage is all about. And the embassy here are very knowledgeable about the Camino. And which is wonderful. It's a wonderful support for us when we do apply for those visas.
Wow, I don't think we have something like that in the US. I'm not aware of it, at least. I'm going to have to look into that. Is it considered like religious based because it's pilgrimage?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. There's actually 2 letters that we get. The one letter is to state that this person is a pilgrim, and then there's another letter which is all written in Spanish, which says that this person is she's specifically doing this particular route. This is where she's starting, and it's simply pilgrimage, and she's going on this journey, which is a lovely thing when you think about having to apply for those visas.
Okay, so if we go to 2022, hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
you will be setting foot again in Spain.
Yes.
So you've already done the Française. Are you going to go back and do any part of that? Are you, do you have, I'm imagining you sound like you pretty much are planning this out. So what routes would be at the top of the list for the next 6 months when you get to be there?
Yeah, so the next one is the Portuguese route. And what I will do is I will then go on to the Inglés, and then I'll also do the Finnis route as well. So what is that? That's 3 Caminos.
We have to 4. You'll have your Française already done.
So I'm moving along nicely.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And I'll certainly I'll certainly see how it goes, because I've got the Camino del Norte, which is very high on my list as well, and the Primitivo, which is something that I absolutely have to do, and then what I'd love to do is do the Française from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port all the way to the end, in Finistère, in one route as well. So, but I think I would have freed up my time quite nicely to actually achieve that. So, I'm very positive about 2022.
Yes. I love how when you came back that then you changed your job so that you could work online. which is enabling you, I'm guessing. So you're just going to put you're carrying your laptop and you're going to be coaching from the path. Is that the plan?
Well, so I was always amazed by the Wi-Fi connections that we had along the route, and now you can pretty much speak to a lot of people on your phone. I know a lot of the pilgrims know Ephraim really, really well, and this is something that he does.
Right.
So he was kind of quite inspiring to me as well. And so I have this vision that I'll have my laptop in my backpack and I will coach along the route and take people on a journey, journey to themselves, and hopefully inspire others to just come on the physical pilgrimage as well, which I think is just such a wonderful opportunity for everyone.
Yeah, well, I would just imagine that if I were, being coached by you, and you're literally out walking on this pilgrimage and doing this amazing feat every day, that it would really be an inspiration. If I called you up and I'm like, well, this didn't work out on my own, I'm just packing it up, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then here you are doing this thing. I would imagine it's going to really inspire all those folks that you're coaching. So what a great idea. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I hope so. And that's being in the online space, is that you don't necessarily, we're not geographically attached to any type of station, so I can be anywhere in the world really, as long as I have a Wi-Fi connection. I can inspire others around the world, which is a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's a real example of, the other day I was interviewing Yosmar Martinez, and she talked about that the Camino requires spirit and, good health. We've got to have both of those things. And I think this is really, so many people will talk about, well, I can't get the time to go. And what Yosmar was talking about was spirit as in the will. You have to have the will. And I think that you are demonstrating that by, you figured that out. How are you? You want to be on Caminos? You want to walk 25 Caminos? That means you got to be there 6 months out of the year. How are you going to be there 6 months out of the year, right? And so I think when we have that strong will and spirit, there is a way. We just have to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's what I've learned about myself, and it's a message to everyone, is that yes, I'm a mindset coach, and I have all of these tools and techniques, but I had all of these resources so long ago as well.
Mm-hmm.
It just took one little moment of quiet and space for me to really, really consider what I wanted. And it's important that we all know that we have everything that we need inside of us to do anything that we need as well. Just to follow our dreams, and I firmly believe it.
Yes. The Camino proves it over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, let's just ask some fun questions, not as philosophical. So you got your backpack, you did that, you had your first two Caminos. So let's talk about, was there anything between the time in Pamplona and then getting to Otebrero that you left home that you realized that was not going to be needed?
So as you said right in the beginning, the Camino Angels, I arrived in Punta Lorena and booked myself into the albergue, and I was sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, and two wonderful gentlemen arrived, and I was watching them, and they were unpacking their backpack. And as they were unpacking their backpack, they were going, I don't need this, and I don't need that, and I don't need this, and I don't need that. And I thought, this is what you actually need to do. You need to go and spend some quality time with your backpack and the contents thereof to see what in actual fact you do actually need.
Yeah.
And, I watched, and I watched how they were quite brutal about their things as well, and there were things that, no, we absolutely don't need that. And I was thinking, no, maybe you do actually need that, maybe a headlight. And they were, I thought, no, I have to take a leaf out of these, gentleman's book. And that's what I did. And when I left the next morning, I could pick up my backpack with my one finger.
What?
With my one finger. And I literally left I had 4 pairs of pants, which I don't know why I had 4 pairs of pants. So I literally left 2 pairs. I literally just left them all there. It was 2 pairs of pants, 2 shirts, all of the fancy shampoos and things like that. Tossed those. I had a little cake of soap, which I used on my hair. And it was, I think if I hadn't done that, because the next day's walk, I was I felt as free as a bird, Nothing got me down. The clouds on the horizon, I was it didn't matter, and that's the thing. If you think you're not going to need it, it's very likely you don't get you are absolutely not going to need it, you know, and less is more.
Yes. What about the flip side though? Because I definitely had a luxury item that I think some people probably don't care about. Did you have a luxury item that you're like, it's probably not really needed, but it's a bit of self-care? Is there anything like that you're like, yeah, that's going to get me on the next 25?
So there's obviously things that I will always pack, and I will always have a cell phone. And I know that we're advised to disconnect as much as we can, but I only use the cell phone to take photos. And on any of my future pilgrimages, it might be to go live along the route or whatever. I always have to have lip ice, which is a South African product. I'm not sure if you have it in.
What is it?
It is the best lip balm you will ever have.
What's it called?
Lip ice.
Lip ice.
And people who know me in South Africa know me that I never go far without my lip ice. I've always got lip ice with me, and it's wonderful because it serves as, first, it's great for your lips, and that's its purpose. But I put it on sunburn, and I've been known to put it on dry spots. So lip ice, and if I have to carry 3 or 4 of those, I will absolutely carry 3 or 4 little lip ice balms. And what else? I was given, before I went, a very small bottle of perfume. And I was probably, not to say that pilgrims don't smell very nice, but I was probably, because I carried this little bottle of perfume with me. I'm not sure why. Yeah. Maybe it was a connection. Maybe it was a connection to home. I'm not sure. But every morning I slyly put on the perfume and off I went. Maybe on my next 25. I don't know.
We will have to find out. I'm going to have to find out what's in that backpack. So when you're coaching, I noticed on your website, in preparing for this interview, that you talk about being an introvert. And do you specialize typically with folks that also consider and find themselves to be more introverted? Is that kind of your specialty?
Yes. So I like to work with people that are in the online space, because this is the space that I know, and this is the space that I love. And I am guided towards the more introverted personality. Having said that, I'm meeting more and more people that say they are introverted, and they are absolutely, they are confident, they are outspoken. And so I've learned a great deal about my own characteristic and how it actually empowers us as well. Because it doesn't make us shy people, it doesn't make us antisocial. It's just how we recharge our energy at the end of the day. So I am guided to that characteristic, and it seems that in my messages, a lot of people come to me tend to be a little bit on the quiet side, and I find them. It's a great connection, because we can talk about what makes us introverts, and being in the online space as well is it's sometimes difficult to navigate when you are an introvert.
Yeah.
Because you have to, there's a certain amount of content that you have to put out, you have to engage, you have to add value all of the time, and at the same time we have to be very mindful to take care of our energy as well.
Yeah.
And that's why I support the more introverted business owner.
Got it. So let's just talk. We're going to have to wrap. I don't want to take up too much of your. I wonder if you could just talk to, like, what did your self-care look like after a day of walking? Because I would imagine, I found days where I wanted to talk to people and days when I didn't really want to. And then I had a lot of rituals when I got back to the albergue. So I just wonder if you could just share maybe your 3 top self-care tips for folks once they arrive wherever they're staying.
Yeah, for me it was always about my first thing I did was have a shower. That was a wonderful time for me to, and not that I stood in the shower for a very, very long time, but it was a nice place where I could literally just be in my own space, and obviously have that time where I can rethink and contemplate the day. I always love to unpack and repack my backpack every day. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't what I needed to do. It was just something that got me into the space of being positive and open and receptive to walk the next day, And I knew where everything was. I'd set up what I needed for the next day. And and then it was wonderful because the meals that I had with the pilgrims, there were times where I would sit and enjoy all of the company, but then times where I knew, and I would excuse myself and go and sit and read a book, or get onto Facebook and just communicate with my friends at home, or onto WhatsApp, and give them a bit of a rundown as to what was happening. So I think it was those 3 things, and I did those. It was the first thing to kind of wash off the day, have that little quiet time, repack the backpack.
Yes.
It was a meditative process for me. I got that and I got that, and this is how the day is going to go tomorrow, and this is what I need. And then, either having a time where I was sharing with others, or simply not. And I think this was very eye-opening for me as well, because the other pilgrims really did give me a lot of space. There would be people that came and sat, at the same table, and we would greet each other, but sit there very quietly. And then there were other times where we would share the day, or what was actually happening, which was lovely.
Wonderful. Well, I want everyone to know that I'm going to list, of course, your website, and that way, if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about you and your coaching, they'll have an opportunity to check in with you. I have just enjoyed this time so much, and I love learning from you and being inspired by the things that you're doing. And I can't wait to watch the next 24 that you're going to be doing. And
Yes.
please let us know at the Camino Cafe when you are ready to embark on the next one. And who knows, maybe we'll be on one of those paths at the same time.
I hope so. I think that'll be magnificent if we, if we met on the paths and, all of these people that have been online. Can you imagine, all getting together? And I think that will just be it will be an amazing gathering. And it's so hopeful for the next years.
Yes, me too. Me too. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us today and sharing your powerful story. And it's just been really inspiring. So thank you so much. And to everyone watching, I hope that you will be inspired to go walk. And please connect with us. If you want to leave a comment, we will respond back. And until next time, keep training, keep planning. Your dream can come true. You just heard a dream can come true. So I hope that your dreams come true. So thank you, everyone. Buen Camino.
Thanks very much, Leigh.
Free,
thank you.
Free as a bird now, with my feathered wings. I am free, free as a bird now, with my feathered